All right, let's go ahead and get started. I hope you guys are all doing great. Welcome to tonight's Scal broadcast. As you know, I'm Tyler. You all know me, um, and we got Penny and Lisa here as well. Um, they're going to be helping us out tonight. And anyways, thank you guys for coming in. So we got a couple of great plans tonight. We've taken a little bit of questions from you guys here, and we're going to go ahead and answer those. I'm going to go ahead and turn my screen sharing on. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and get started. Right now, I am running Sure Cuts a Lot. You can check your version. I'm running a Mac, but they're the same. They're the same as what we would see on the PC. Okay, and you can go ahead and check that by going to the About Sure Cuts a Lot, and it'll tell you a little bit, as well as my serial number in case you didn't get that. Anyways, right here, Sure Cuts a Lot. One of the very first questions dealt with tools. Okay. All right. Sound should be back up and running now. Sorry about that. Okay, perfect. I'm just going to go. Okay. All right. I can see you guys are hearing me now. So let's go ahead and let's jump back. I guess what I just wanted, you guys just kind of saw a little bit of how to make a your own window layout. The reason why that's important is because first of all, now we can see the layers. We can activate each of these individual workspaces or Windows by going to the Window menu and then just selecting that from the drop down. Let's see, losing the sound. Can you guys hear it? Can you hear me now? Let's see. Let me try something. All right, I can see you guys are hearing me now. Okay. Okay. All right. All right, Penny, if you want to go ahead and unmute. See, I just want to.
Can you hear me, Tyler?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now.
Okay, it seems that the Google keeps hearing me type or click and it keeps muting me.
Huh.
It's driving me absolutely crazy. Let me switch. Let's see. Is this any better?
Yeah, I can hear you really clear now.
Okay, I'll try and switch a few things around. Okay, hopefully this works a little bit better for everybody. I apologize for trying to figure some of this stuff out. It's a little. Let's see. Yeah, it keeps muting me for some reason. Penny, if you want to go ahead and just let me know, since you're in the in here, if I start muting or something like that, because that's not supposed to happen. Okay, can you still hear me? Yes, no.
Hey, Tyler, I can hear you, but I have to put one on mute or I'm hearing you twice.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you put the just keep the webinar open from Google and just don't hit play on the broadcast page.
Okay, I can do that. Okay. I have you live and I'm not listening to you through the broadcast page.
Perfect. That'll work a lot better.
Okay.
Because Google keeps trying to mute us every time it thinks it hears a click.
Okay.
Okay. So, anyways, let me go ahead and get back to this. I'm sorry, everybody. Again, we'll get used to this. So, what I was saying is basically we have Scal right here. We have, and before you set everything up, you want to get your layout. And so I kind of made my own perfect custom layout, and then I've gone up into Workspace and I've saved my workspace. You can manage your workspaces, you can delete them, you can change them. Here, so say I wanted to rename it, I can do that. I can delete it here. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, I guess it really wasn't that perfect after all, but that's okay. So that's the first thing, is get your workspace set up. The second thing is, let's look at our tools. Okay, we have several different tools here, and as I was trying to say earlier before I believe I got muted, this properties bar will change according to both what tool is selected and whether or not a shape is selected on our cutting mat. Now, this is our cutting mat. Right now, I've set it up to work with my cutter. I've gone up to cutter, my cutter, and I've selected Silver Bullet. Okay, it showed my mat here, and without anything selected, and with just the selection tool selected, I can go ahead and change the mat size. Okay, I can change it between several different default sizes of 12 by 12, 12 by 24, or 8.5 by 11. Because I work a lot with 8.5 by 11, I usually keep this as my custom or as my default size. But you can actually go through and put in a custom mat size as well. The other day I had to cut some acrylic. Yeah, it's kind of like for framing. You score the acrylic lines, and then you can break them at the seams, and that's what I was doing. The acrylic was 14 inches by 11 inches, so I actually came in here, adjusted my width to 15 inches, and now I have my cutting mat that matched the acrylic, and I could actually design where I wanted those score lines to be precisely. So anyway, so now that we have everything set up, that's kind of what you can do with nothing selected, is you can view the document properties, and you can rename the page. Right now, this page is named Page 1. You can see right up here, it says Page 1. We can name this Rockin' Page. And when we hit Enter, it updates right up here. Okay, that's the selection tool. Now this tool is going to change when we add an object to our page and we've selected it. So let's add an object. I'm big fan of the lips. Okay, now when we have this object selected, you'll notice that there are these blue grab handles coming around. Okay, now if you work with other cutting programs before, these might be pretty self-explanatory, but it's still good to go over them. The top left, the left middle, and the top middle are all both position handles. The top left, you can move both horizontally and vertically, while the top middle will move constrained to the vertical axis, and the left middle will constrain to the horizontal axis. Okay. Now, the bottom left corner and the top right corner are both rotational handles. They serve to rotate. Okay. And the bottom right three serve to scale or change the size of your image. The bottom right will let you change in both the horizontal or vertical direction, while the bottom middle will change and constrain you to movement in just the vertical direction. Okay, the right middle will constrain to just the horizontal. Now, we talked a little bit about the properties window before. You'll notice when I don't have something selected, we have our document and our page properties, but when I do have something selected, that changes. You can see our position on the mat. You can see, let me go ahead and make this a little smaller. Okay, now one of the cool things about the position is you can precisely line up your designs about where you're going to cut. So say you want a 1-inch border from the edge of your page on both of these, and you're going to use what you see is what you get, or WYSIWYG cutting. You can set this to 1, and it lines up perfectly with our 1 by 1. Okay. Now you can use the arrow keys to move your design. I'm just using left, right, down, and up arrow keys on my keyboard. Or you can use the nudge buttons, and these go at a more of a micro scale than the arrow keys. You can see it's much smaller. Okay. The horizontal line and the vertical line are according to the mat. Say you want something to be dead center. You can align it both centrally, horizontally, and centrally vertically. And this basically lines this up so it's in the dead center of our cutting mat. Okay. Now, down below it shows our width, our height. We can edit those, and we can choose whether or not we want to keep proportions. Right now, this is set to keep proportions. Okay. This means, as we change this up here, it will automatically scale in the same proportion, so we keep our same aspect ratio. And logically, if we uncheck that, we can constrain it just to the horizontal or vertical axis. Okay. The other things that I think are important to note are the option to rotate by 45 degrees, as well as changing these rotation handles from rotate to do what's called skewing. And this lets you get kind of a cool effect. Okay. I usually keep them. It's more common to use just the rotate function, but it's cool to know when it comes. All right. Now, are there, go ahead. Are there any questions that have come in, Penny?
No, sir. Everybody's just listening. I think you're on a roll now that it's actually starting to make sense for everybody.
Okay, I hope so. Again, there's about a 1 minute lag in the broadcast, but I think that overall it will. I mean, with you there, just feel free to interrupt me if they come in. Okay.
Okay.
Now, that is the selection tool. I want to go through. Let's go through another couple tools, and then we'll continue on with some of these path stuff. All right. The selection tool is basically your bread and butter. All right. Now, even if you have another tool selected, hold down the control button. It's not working for me right now on my Mac, and it'll actually default back to the selection temporarily.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
Somebody's wanting to know, when you have two objects on the page, how can you center them both?
It's now one of the cool things about Shortcuts a lot is you can select multiple objects at once. You can rubber band select them, or marquee cue select them. There's different names for them. I prefer rubber band because it's easier to say. And or you can actually shift click on shapes. So if I hold the shift button and so there are different ways you can select them. Now with them both selected, all you do is come back over to the horizontal line and the vertical line, and it will center them both right on top of each other, or just horizontally. All right. Now, and so that's some of the basic movements. I'm hoping that these get more and more advanced as time goes on. If you wanted to align something to the top left of the mat, you can use these other buttons and play around, And if you hover over it, it'll tell you a little bit more about what that tool does.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
Can you show them how they can select one item at a time if they have several items on a page?
Of course. I'm just going to make this a little more visible. Okay, there we go. So right now we have a whole bunch of shapes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ungroup. Kind of doing some stuff that we haven't gotten to, but there we go. All right, so now we have a whole bunch of shapes, and say you want to align. Say we're gonna let's go ahead and rotate some of these in here, and you only want to select these 3 rotated shapes. Okay, you can click on one, And then while holding the Shift key, click on the other shape. The box just went from here over to here. And holding the Shift key, there. Now it may look like we have other shapes selected, but we actually don't. We can drag these out. Now we can do the inverse of this. Say we have, let's see, let me go ahead and delete a bunch of these so it's not confusing. Say we want all of the shapes except for a couple. Okay, say we don't want these 3 rotated shapes in this bottom right area. Click on one, and then while holding the Shift key, somebody mute. All right, thanks. Okay. So basically what we can do is we can select this area. Now we do the opposite. We hold the Shift, and we can. Now when we move, we'll get all of them. Whoops. Except when I'm showing how to do it. Let me see. Deselect some.
This is really irritating.
So, anyways, you email the developers and let them know there's a bug there. But basically, you can deselect those various shapes. Okay. You can also so let's just go ahead and move some of these back. Okay. So that's kind of how you can select several of them. Okay. I want to check and see if there's any questions really quickly.
Hey, Tyler.
Yep.
It's cutting in and out really bad. Just so you know. People over at YouTube on the YouTube side have commented on that it's cutting in and out sporadically.
Okay, let me try something different. See if this is any better. It's not letting me.
We can hear you now.
I know. I have an idea of what it is, but it's restricting me a little bit right now. Let me try something just a little bit different. Try moving some things over. Sorry about this. Let's see, I'm trying to see if I can't see if maybe it's a bandwidth problem. That's my only guess. And, let's see if this is any better. Okay. All right, I hope this is a little bit better. I'm going to try and go a little bit slower. Hopefully that will help with everything. Okay.
You sound good on my end.
Okay, that's good to know. So basically, what we just did was we had gone through and we selected some of our shapes using our selection tool. Okay. Now these tools down here are for navigation. One is the zoom tool. You can just click and it will zoom in automatically as you click. Another thing that's useful to do is you can rubber band select an area and zoom in on just that area. Okay, and the zoom out tool works in the same way. You just select it and you can click. Now, one of the useful keyboard shortcuts for zooming in and out is Command plus the plus button, or Command plus the minus. That's for Mac. If you're using a PC, you can use Control plus and Control minus. Various increments. Okay, Penny, can you still hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Now, we've gone through a couple of different tools. We have not yet touched the draw tool or the shape tool, as well as the typing tool. Okay. Now, the draw tool, let me go ahead and let's get a new page. Let's add our shape back to our map. Okay. The shape tool will let us edit nodes. Okay. Now it's important to understand what a node is. Okay. Because when you're dealing with cutting programs in general, you have nodes and you have paths. When I select this shape with that tool, you can see there are these tiny little white bumps along the way, along the edges. These are all called nodes. Okay? And there's the outline of our shape which runs through these nodes. The lines connecting these nodes are called paths. We design our shapes by adjusting the nodes, and then our cutters go through and cut along the path. When somebody says go through and edit the nodes, they're talking about this. They're talking about go through and make sure that you don't have any spare nodes, because the path is going to run through that node. And if you have a node that's a little bit crazy or too sharp or more nodes than you need, you're telling the cutter to go through and act jerky around those points. And whenever you're telling the cutter to do that, you're going to get a lesser quality cut. And that's why it's really important to pay attention to the nodes. All of these shapes have pretty much been optimized. A general rule for nodes is you want the least number possible while still maintaining the desired shape that you want. Okay. Now, with each node and with the path that goes around it, various attributes get applied to it. Okay. So you'll notice that this shape right now is the color red. Whenever something is filled in, this is called a fill. Okay. The fill is the color red in this case. The actual outline, the actual path going around our shape and through these nodes, which basically kind of defines what we're going to cut, has another attribute tied to it. It's called the stroke. Now you can see with our shape selected, we have access to both the fill and the stroke right over here in our Properties tab. Okay, we can go ahead and change our fill and our stroke colors. Right now they're set to the exact same color. But let's go ahead and change our stroke to purple. All right, now it's faint, but you can see it. And if I zoom in, you'll be able to see it even more. You can see how we have a purple stroke and a red fill. All right? These are just visual properties. And it's important to understand that. Because if I go and hit the preview button, which will show me everything that's going to cut, you can see our path is still here. We actually don't have two shapes. We just have one path, and the path has the attributes of a red fill and a purple stroke. Unfortunately, our cutters, when they cut this, they're not going to automatically fill in, the shape with a red fill, and they're not going to give it a nice purple little outline. That's for a printer. But they will cut along this path. And it's important to recognize that, because some people, especially new people to cutting machines, they see this and they think, oh, it's going to cut two lines, one right here and then an outline border, and that's actually not the case. Okay, so that's the appearance area. There's some other stuff that deal with line style and cut line type, and we'll deal with that a little bit later. Are there any?
Hey, Tyler, Alicia just asked me a question, and I'm trying to answer her. She's still using Scal 2 and is wondering if there was a way to thicken the font in Scal 2 like we can do like a shadow layer in Scal 3. And I can't remember if Scal 2 had a shadow feature.
I believe it does have a shadow feature.
Okay. I'll tell her
that. And very just quickly, that we have our fill and we have our stroke. And this style tab right here will help us adjust that. Okay, we can go ahead and choose various options from that. We can choose a shadow, which is what you're talking about. We can also choose blackout. Blackout will take away all of the inside shapes, so you can see the inside of the lips or the mouth. If I click blackout, the inside shape will go away, just like that. All right. Now, let's go back to normal. If I go ahead and choose shadow, it's going to actually increase the size. I'm going to go ahead and copy, and I'm going to paste a duplicate of that shape so we have one for reference. We can come over here with that shape selected and click on shadow. And you can see how it increased the size just a little bit. Let me change the fill color so you can better see that it's a changed size. Okay, I'm going to stack them on top of each other. All right. Now, this may look like an outline, but if we go to our preview, we can actually see there are two cut lines. Okay. Now we can adjust the size of the shadow by increasing or decreasing the amount. Okay. Now, if we want, we can play around and kind of go back to where it was, and we can adjust the type of shadows that we're using. Here is the regular shadow with it's quite a bit bigger, okay, than our original. We can choose to actually round out some of these sharp corners in our shadow. So say you're going to be cutting out these lips, you need a background, and you don't want it to be quite so sharp. We can choose shadow and round it. And you can see how it rounded these corners, so it's just a little bit softer. Now, if I recall right, Actually, I'm 99.9% sure that that is in Scal 2. It's been about a year and a half or 2 years since I've used Scal 2, but that's the shadow feature.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
Hey, you just pulled up a box a while ago. I didn't see it because I was answering a question. What box did you just bring up? They're wanting to know how you did that. I apologize. I was trying to do too many things at once.
Fine. I think, let's see. I believe they were talking about this box. This is the only one that's popping in my head. All I did is just select the color. If you guys, you know,
I bet that is the box.
and all you do is you click on the color. Okay.
See,
Now,
your color looks different than ours does.
it does look different.
We don't have the wheel. We have the square.
It's because it will pull up the operating system colors. Okay. So the Mac operating system is a little bit different than the Windows operating.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay. I guess, yeah, that'll take you for a loop, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to quickly say is you can shadow by going to add shadow layer with your path selected, and it'll bring up its own window, and you can choose multiple options here, okay? And we can go over this a little bit more later, but I'm not sure if this is in Scal 2 or not. But for the sake of completion, I wanted to make sure that people knew you can access even more options. Okay. Now, we were talking about node editing. We just talked about what a path is. And we talked about the attributes and how the attributes do not get transferred to the cutter. Okay?
Tyler,
Yeah.
they want to know how you did the shadow box, how you got that to come up, because that's what they're not getting. It's not the color box, it's how you did the shadow.
Okay. So all I did before is I went over to the appearance. There are two ways to get a shadow. With your shape selected, you can go over to appearance, and then right next to style. There are two ways you can shadow your image. Under the appearance tab, you can go over to where it says style, and you can select shadow or the various options. Now, when you have an image shadowed, you can adjust the size of that shadow. Okay. The other way to do it is you can go up to Object and come down to where it says Add Shadow Layer. Now when you click on this, it will bring up the Shadow Layer menu. Okay. Here you can increase or decrease the size of our shadow. We can make an inset shadow, which actually makes it it's an inverted shadow. You see how we're getting these smaller shapes? We can black out the shadow. So now we're getting like the inside. And we can make a print and cut outline. Okay. Now we're not going to talk about this right now. Okay. But one of the useful things to do is create like a blackout shadow, and now we can have like the inside of our mouth. Okay. Were there any questions? Did that answer what people were wondering, Penny?
Yes, it did answer. She said that was spot on perfect. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry about the delay and everything. We'll get used to this as time goes on. This is, as a lot of you
You're
guys know.
cutting out again, Tyler.
Okay, I said we'll get used to this as time goes on. As a lot of you know, this is something, I mean, I'm just about the same as all of you guys. I actually am a dental student, and I try and help out on the side. So I'm used to running about 1,000,000 miles a minute. And if I go too quickly, it tends to cut out the sound before the video. So I think that's what is happening. So I'm just trying to remember to slow myself down. Uh, so anyways,
You're doing a wonderful job, Tyler.
well, you'll have to, you get what you pay for, right? um, so those are some of the basic functions. We have not yet talked about node editing. The reason why is because I want to make sure that you understand some of the basic SureCuts Lot interface features first. Kind of a walk before you can run. All right? Now, let's get into more of the node editing because it's relatively minor. There are other programs such as Inkscape, CorelDRAW, or Adobe Illustrator which are made for node editing. SureCuts Lot is more made for cutting, and it's the best program that I found for actual cutting. Now, with that being said, there are still some features that allow for minor node editing. However, I would always recommend that if you have a shape that you plan on doing node editing beforehand, that you do it inside of Inkscape, Adobe Illustrator, or CorelDRAW. One of the cool things about SureCuts Lot is it actually has built-in plugins for each of those three programs. And that will let you export directly into SureCuts Lot from those programs. If there's a question on how to do that, feel free to leave it in the forum and we'll talk about it next week. But some of the minor features with our shape tool selected, we can select the node and drag the nodes out. Okay. Now we can also we can select multiple nodes and drag multiple nodes out or in until we get the shape that we want. Okay. Now with our nodes, we can, with the node selected, you'll notice you see some other things. You see these things that stick out. These are called node handles. And you can adjust these as well. The path will come in and will intersect the node according to the properties of the node handles. So you'll notice if I have a very sharp node, you'll notice in SureCuts Lot how the node handles are actually pretty short themselves. Okay? Whereas if I have a more smooth node, the node handles are more parallel to each other and they're longer. I kind of like to think of the node handles as being like magnets, and the paths are attracted to the magnets. So if I take this node handle and I pull it out here, you can see how the path is attracted to that node handle. Okay? And the same thing for the opposite. We can go ahead and stretch this out. Now what will happen if I make it much smaller or I shrink the node handle in? You can see how the path does not have quite as much of a draw to it. And while still maintaining the requirement of going through the node, it comes in at a much sharper angle. Okay? Now that's some of your basic node editing inside of SureCuts Lot using that tool. There's a few more tricks that we can do. Okay? But let's go ahead and switch to the draw tool for a second. This tool that looks like a fountain pen is actually the draw tool. And we can go ahead and select it. This will let us create a custom shape from scratch. I find it more useful when I have to add in score marks or basic shapes that I can do quickly inside of Shortcuts a lot. Now, how do you use this? Basically, you just click and it will create a node. Click a second time and you'll get another node. And every time you click, you'll get your nodes, and it will lay one down until you're done. Now, we can go ahead and I'm just going to click this very first node that we did, and as I hover over it, our little cursor or our fountain pen will have a little circle that will appear right next to it. When I click that, it will go ahead and finish off our shape. Okay? Say we don't want a shape to be finished off. Say we just want our standard zigzag line. From there, all we do is press Enter, and it will finish our path for us. Now, one thing that's important to note is that a path that is not closed or complete, like up here, it can't display a fill because it's not enclosing anything. Whereas our path up above that we completed does display a fill. Okay? So that's an important distinction. Now, we can actually go a step further. And by clicking and dragging, we can pull out the node handles that we just talked about, our little magnetic handles. Okay? And by clicking and dragging, we can make our shape be smooth. Now, we can use this to our advantage and actually combine some of these shapes. Okay, I can go ahead and make a smooth node, smooth, smooth, and then make a sharp node, smooth, smooth, and then I can finish it out. I want this to come in smoothly, so boom. Okay. Now from here we can adjust our fill and our stroke colors. Let's go ahead and make this fill a green. I want to make it a little bit darker. Okay. And I'm going to actually also make a shadow layer of this. Okay. Now, right now, this has a little yellow around it. I don't like the yellow. That's our stroke. So we can actually come over to where it says stroke and change that to none. Okay. So far, here is our shape. And we can go ahead and design or draw just about any shape you can imagine.
Hey, Tyler,
Yeah,
they want to know if you can redo that again.
of course. I'm guessing you're referring to the node drawing.
Let me find out. Come on, somebody answer me. And just so you know, dude, it's almost 7 till.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye out. We're going to finish up the
Well,
tools.
they're not answering me, so go on until they answer me, I guess.
Okay. Well, we were just talking about the nodes.
Smooth and sharp.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Basically, by clicking once, you just get a sharp node. By clicking and holding and then dragging before you release, you get a smooth node. And you can use this to your advantage because you can go ahead and single click and then click and drag to make a combination of both sharp and smooth nodes. Okay. Now, I'm by no artist, but we'll see what we can come up with here. So I'm kind of just going through and using the draw tool to create some shapes. And I'm having a little fun while I'm doing it. Let's go ahead and change our lips to a more suitable color. Okay. Let's see, Workspace. Oops. Just wanted to, just lost my broadcast screen. There we go. So I'm working off of two different monitors here. So, things sometimes jump back and forth in broadcast mode. Okay. Now, you can start to see we're kind of getting a shape, kind of. Let's go ahead and bring our lily pad over here. Okay. Now, all using the node tools. And so we want to see how this is going to cut. What lines would the cutter actually go through and cut? We can click on the preview page. Now, you may see something wrong with when this would cut. You see this area right here? Basically, this is kind of like a loop-de-loop that the cutter would do. And you don't want that in your cut. Let's zoom in, and we'll be able to see it a little bit better. Okay? You can see how the cutter would actually come through and do a loop-de-loop right here around here. That, while it likely won't cause a huge deal, it's not what you want. And we can come through and edit these nodes right around here. Okay. Now with the node selected, you can actually delete it by pressing the delete key. Okay. Now, let me zoom. Magnetic candle. There we go. That will cut much better than what we had before. I'm rid of that loop-de-loop. Okay. So we've pretty much gone over the basic draw tools and the node editing. One last thing. If you have a path and you would like to add a node to it so that you can pull or put in a certain part, you can add a node by selecting the draw tool, coming down along the path, and you see how when I hover over the path, my cursor changes to a little plus. See, there's kind of an X, and as I go over it, it's a plus. This means I can add a node to that spot. And if I click, it will add one to it. Now you can see, here's the node that I added. Additionally, I can delete nodes that were there. By hovering over that node with the draw tool, the minus sign will come up next to the cursor, and clicking it will remove the node. It will also make the path that is running through that node change a little bit because this node is no longer anchoring it to that position. Okay, so it's important. All right. Now we can go ahead and use our basic shapes to kind of finish off what I was trying to do. Now we're just using all of the same principles. See, I think you're
Here we go.
you want to mute, Penny?
Yes, sir. I lost you again. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Yeah, I wasn't talking.
Oh.
Which one of you? I'm hearing it like a TV in the background. So, anyways, here is our little frog. Okay, I like all the purple borders and stuff, so I'm just going to get rid of the stroke, set it to none. So here's kind of our little frog that we've made. I know it's nothing amazing. It's the best I can do. How's that? But those are some of the basic tools inside of Shortcuts a lot. Okay. Now I just want to take a minute or two quickly for questions. I know there's about a 30-second lag.
I just posted to see if there was any questions because you're going to be finishing up for the night. Let's see if we get any questions. Alicia says thank you.
Is this something that's useful to you guys? Would you guys like to keep doing this in the future? And can you guys deal with the technical difficulties? Because I have a feeling this may not be the last.
See, they think you're the bomb, dude.
Well, it's all you, Penny.
No, it's not.
So, perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and end there. These are just some of the basics. I want you each, for your homework, go ahead and make a frog, right? Out of lips.
That's perfect.
We'll do this either in a week or 2 weeks, and please post your questions. We love questions. We love being able to show things. What makes these broadcasts a success is are the questions, are you guys. And anyways, perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and end this. But thanks again for coming out. Feel free to hang out in the chat as long as you'd like. And thanks again.
Thank you, Tyler. Dude, you rock.